Good morning and welcome to Halley Live, and a special greeting to all those in schools and colleges up and down New Zealand who've joined us this morning. Some of you, of course, will have the very good fortune to be able to see Halley's Comet twice. You'll see it this year and you'll see it again in 76 years' time. But for most of us here, the next hour or two offers literally what's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. At this moment, the Giotto spacecraft, which is a tiny cosmic voyager no bigger than the family motorcar, is 144 million kilometres out in space, hurtling towards the head of Halley's Comet. And before long, it'll be sending back to Earth pictures, close-up pictures, which have never ever been seen before of the comet's nucleus. We'll be joining the BBC and the European Space Agency headquarters soon to make rendezvous with Giotto and Halley. And we'll also be linking with the Halley Watch site in South Canterbury, who are having their own local difficulties to do with extremely bad weather and torrential downpours of rain down there. But before we do make this international link-up, a word with the people who've joined me here for this historic encounter. Frank Andrews, lecturer in astronomy. You've been looking at Halley for a long time, I know, from a range of something like 100 million kilometres. You're going to see it soon, we hope, from about 500 kilometres. Does that mean you're going to have to rewrite all the textbooks that you've done?
Well, we don't really know whether we're going to have to rewrite them at this stage, but from our experience of previous space missions, I think that the chances are quite good that some very major re-editing at least is going to be necessary.
And the exciting thing, I guess, for you is that this discovery is not something that is made by a few astronomers looking through telescopes, but by people all over the world through television.
Yes, it's something that for the first time in New Zealand, and it's been possible in other countries before, it's possible for everybody in the country to share a history-making event as it happens. So, if you like, you're right up front with everybody else, seeing these things as it happens, which I think is very, very exciting.
Frank, we look forward to hearing from you comments as we cross to Giotto. David Maclennan, a specialist in spaceflight, a spaceflight information expert. You and I were talking just as we began the programme about the journey that Giotto's making, and you were saying we need a lot of luck. It's very dangerous, isn't it?
Well, yes, because we've never tried to send a spacecraft into an environment like this before. The gas and the dust and so forth. Flying past a planet or a moon is pretty much a known quantity, but this is something quite new and therefore very exciting.
What have you heard, by the way, before we've started? It's so far so good, is it? It's on course?
Yes, so far so good. The first photographs have been taken. Everything's working fine.
I hope to join it soon. David, thank you. Martina Steinhardt, welcome to the programme. An astronomer and a biologist working at Victoria University and the Carter Observatory. Along with Frank, very interested in what we're going to find out, I have what you may regard as an awfully oversimple question. But is it too simple to ask if you're going to perhaps find out today whether there's life on Halley's Comet?
We probably don't find out today when the photos actually come in. And as far as active life is concerned, we probably won't find that either. But we hope and we might learn a lot about the origin of life in this solar system and a wee bit the origin of life in the universe.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you as we join Giotto. We're very proud to have with us Charles Michie, who's come all the way from the north of Auckland, who 76 years ago watched Halley from, what was it, the back garden? Charles, what was it like then?
Yes, it was at first a small object because on account of the position in relation to Earth and Sun, but it grew quickly in size until it extended on the fourth morning to about 100 degrees, and on the following morning, when Earth was due to pass through the tail, it was a very enormous object. The nucleus had not risen, and the tail was setting in the northwestern sky.
Thanks, Charles. We want to talk some more about that later. That was 76 years ago, but right now, in 1986, considerable anticipation here as Giotto approaches Halley. There'll be a lot of that, too, down at the Halley Watch site in Mackenzie Basin, where, as I say, the weather locally has not been at all helpful. But Halley's movement's been monitored down there to help Giotto's navigation. We go there now to join Peter Llewellyn.
Well, good morning, everybody. We're standing amongst the paraphernalia of the Marima watch site. Now, Marima was chosen, of course, because of its clear view of the eastern horizon, its distance from cities, hence the light pollution problem, and, of course, it's usually clear weather. Now, everyone knows that over the last few days we've had some absolutely appalling weather. It's a part of the country that's usually drought-stricken, but it's had much more rain than it can usually handle. Despite some clearing skies, yesterday the creeks and rivers had risen by almost a metre, virtually cutting off the area from the rest of the country. In fact, so much so that the bridge into the watch site had to be quickly replaced. But by 3 a.m. this morning, the bridge was ready for the groups of keen stargazers who'd made the pilgrimage despite the weather.
Ian Crumpton from Dunedin, and ancient man has been able to look up and it collects considerably more light than your eye does, so you can see a lot fainter.
And they were rewarded by a break in the clouds for a fine view of the comet. With us we have a number of astronomers with the enthusiasm undampened, I hope, to give us their comments during this rather special event this morning. With us, Rod Austin, who's one of that select club who have had comets named after him. Rod, it's been pretty bad over the last week. When was the last time you got a decent view?
I would imagine last Saturday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, we had a beautiful night. We had 83 people out here and they got a magnificent view.
Last night it was just a very short break in the clouds that gave you the view, was it?
Yes, we were very lucky indeed because right at the last minute a hole appeared, they had a magnificent view and everybody went away very happy.
But I understand they've been coming out despite the weather just to hear the lectures and so.
Yes, we've been rather amazed actually. The numbers have turned up. So far we've had about 450 overall in the last week.
And they get a really spectacular view with these telescopes.
Yes, some of the telescopes of course don't give quite the same sort of view as others, but in general we are getting a very good view indeed when it's clear.
Right, well that's fine. Well, we'll be talking to Rod later on in the programme. Back to Ian at Avalon.
Thanks, Peter. Peter, at least in his shirt sleeves and with some rather dampish but nonetheless sunshine down in South Canterbury. We'll be returning to the Halley watch site later on. Right now, let's look a little more at this intrepid space voyager, the Giotto, that's making its way towards Halley and we hope sending us picture before so long. David, can you tell us about that journey that this spacecraft's making at the moment? I mean, is it a bumpy ride? Is it hot? Is it cold up there?
Well, it's going to be starting to be a bumpy ride around about now as it's getting in close towards the nucleus of the comet. The solar temperature at that distance would be about 400 degrees Celsius, I guess. The temperature of the comet would be, about 40 degrees above absolute zero, was it, Frank? About that.
Well, I mean, from what I've seen of it, and I haven't seen much, but we have got some pictures that we could have a look at. It seems a very fragile thing to be undertaking such a journey. Could you tell us, describe that Giotto to us as we have a look at the pictures of it? There it is.
Sure. Well, we're seeing here a close-up of the camera. This is the one that's going to be sending us all the pictures. The camera's actually mounted inside the spacecraft, and there's a baffle about 450 millimetres long, a little mirror that gets the pictures in. Here's the solar cells. This provides the power for the spacecraft, runs off about 28 volts DC, and it carries 10 scientific instruments, including the camera, which are going to be making the measurements, the composition of the nucleus, analysing the dust. The technicians here are working on the propulsion system for it.
Oh, so it has got its own power as well as that solar?
Yes, it's got a little thrusters on board for making minor course corrections, that sort of thing.
And is that also what it has to spin all the time?
Yes, it's spinning at 15 revs per minute, or about once every 4 seconds.
Now, which way We're looking there at the base of it. We just passed
Right,
the base,
we just
haven't we?
passed the
Because
base,
this is the
yeah.
bit that sends the signals back to us to Earth.
Yeah, well, it's heading in base forward towards the comet. There's a dust shield on the bottom which protects it from the impact of the dust particles and so forth.
Now, I think Frank Andrews was telling me in an earlier program that we did about that the speed at which those dust particles hit that thing is quite frightening.
Right, well, the spacecraft's travelling at just over 68 kilometres per second, and even a very small dust particle hitting you at that speed would be like a rifle bullet or more.
Hang on, look, this is this model of it you've got right. So this is the dust shield that's going
this
to...
is the dust shield at the bottom here, and there's two dust shields actually. One's a sheet of aluminium about 1 millimetre thick, and then there's a gap of about 230 millimetres before you get to another dust shield, which is 13.5 millimetres thick, and it's made up of a sort of a sandwich of foam and Kevlar, which is the material they use in bulletproof vests. And the idea being that a dust particle might hit the bottom shield, vaporise as it goes through, and that'll spread it out more so that the impact on the back dust shield will be less.
Yeah. I won't ask you to take bets on it, but about whether it'll survive or not. But Frank, where actually, I mean, it's going 500 kilometres away from the nucleus, so it's going into what? What do we? I mean, the cloud, the tail.
It's going into what we call the head of the comet. This is the gas or gas-like material and dust that is evaporating off that tiny nucleus. The comet's going to the space probe is going to approach the comet at approximately a head-on angle. Actually, it's a glancing blow. So if this is the comet, the probe will approach it something like that and pass, well, we hope 500 kilometres ahead of the nucleus.
And we hope survive on the way through. Back to look more at Giotto's chances of success in a moment, but first, a break.
Liquid softness. True comfort softness that only new, richer, creamier comfort can give. New Comfort eliminates static cling completely, makes ironing easier, and gives deep down softness to everything you wash. A special comfort softness. New Comfort. Fresher, softer, better.
Welcome back to Halley Live. Considerable excitement here as we wait to see just what the pictures will reveal when they're beamed down from Giotto, 144 million kilometres away in space. A New Zealand astronomer, Alan Gilmore, has had a good part to play in the preparations for this great experiment. Peter Llewellyn looks at what he's been doing as Giotto has approached Halley's Comet.
Around the world, 50 or so observatories were given the job of the astrometric positioning of the comet for the Giotto rendezvous. This work involves measuring as accurately as possible the comet's position in relation to stars whose position and motion is well known. One of the 4 major observatories in the southern hemisphere engaged in this work is the Mount John Observatory at Tekapo, under the supervision of astronomer Alan Gilmore.
This is a 60 centimetre aperture Cassegrain telescope, a reflecting telescope, and on the back we attach this camera, and on the camera we put photographic plates. The photographic plates go into a plate holder like this. We load that, of course, in the darkroom, and then we centre the comet in the view in the back here, and then when the comet's already in the middle of the picture, we then put the photographic plate holder into there, and we make an exposure by drawing the dark side like that. Turning the dark side, we note very carefully the time when the exposure started and stopped, and then for Comet Halley we make several exposures on one photograph. Between the exposures we turn this micrometer, which moves the whole photographic plate holder sideways by about 1 millimetre each time. We take several exposures, the longest being about 30 seconds, then 10 seconds, and then 5 seconds.
That's quite a short exposure for astronomical work.
Very short. Normally we take exposures of half an hour to an hour. The problem usually is that we're photographing a very faint comet or asteroid against a background of bright stars. We have to have stars whose positions we know in the photograph. In this case, we have a very bright comet against a background of very ordinary stars. We want to get the centre of that comet as registering the smallest possible spot on the photograph, but we still have to record the background stars around it. And so we have to compromise between overexposing the comet and underexposing the background stars, which is much the reverse of our usual problem.
What happens to the pictures then?
After the pictures are processed, then they are measured, well, they are inspected on a light table, and then catalogued stars whose positions are known are identified, and then they are measured in a measuring machine. Here we have two photographs. This is a long exposure photograph taken with the Cassegrain telescope, showing the whole comet, more or less as you would see it in a small telescope, or perhaps the head region seen through a pair of binoculars. The part of the comet we're interested in is the very tiny cloud of dust around the nucleus. Now that's almost completely obscured in the overexposed head of the comet here. In this picture, we have the very short exposures I mentioned before with a 30-second, 10-second and 5-second exposure. And you can see now we're looking at the very centre of the comet. Around the comet, we have circled the stars whose positions are accurately known. And again, those are recorded in the 30, 10 and 5-second exposures.
So we're looking at the same area of sky there?
Exactly. We're looking at a piece of sky here a little bit bigger than a full moon. A full moon would be about that round. So you're looking at right down into the head of the comet.
So even that small, are we looking at the nucleus there?
No, certainly not. The size of that spot in there would correspond at the comet's distance to a patch of dust that would be probably hundreds of kilometres across. The size of the nucleus is perhaps 10 kilometres across. So we are seeing the cloud of dust that is immediately surrounding the nucleus, the cloud of dust that Giotto will fly past or fly through, but we're still not seeing anything like the nucleus of the comet.
So how accurate is the positional data you've recorded?
When it's combined with the data from the other observatories and also from the Vega Pathfinder spacecraft, the errors turn out to be averaging about half a second of arc. Now, a second of arc is 1/1800th of a full moon's diameter. At the distance of the comet, half a second of arc corresponds to about 500 kilometres.
So that's the data that's sent to Giotto?
Yes. The positions that we measure are turned into a standard international code, and then we telex them via the post office to the European Space Agency's Operations Centre in Darmstadt, where they do all the computing work for guiding Giotto.
On Tuesday of this week, the work was completed, and the last set of positional data was sent to Darmstadt for a relay to the spacecraft, now 8 light minutes away from Earth, and closing with the coma of the comet at a combined speed of over 100 kilometres a second. Well, we'll be seeing the live pictures as soon as they arrive. Now, but before that, Alan Gilmore, presuming the probe is presently surviving the dust particle onslaught, what do you expect to get out of the pictures we'll see?
Well, the pictures should show us, first of all, the nucleus. Even the existence of the nucleus was only a few years ago sort of contested by some astronomers, so just seeing a nucleus itself will be confirmation that there is a nucleus in a comet. The size of the nucleus is a very interesting question. Also, the Vega Pathfinder spacecraft and the other Vega indicated that the nucleus may be double, which is quite an extraordinary result. If comet nuclei split, as they do, then they normally separate very quickly, I mean on a period of weeks. So what that double nucleus is a very interesting question, and we hope to get more information. There are features on the nucleus. For example, we know that the nucleus gives out streams of dust, and these presumably emanate from cracks or fissures, craters, something like that, in the surface of the nucleus. So if we're lucky and the spacecraft can see through the haze, then we should be able to see features on the nucleus and see these dust streams, we hope, emerging from the nucleus. Is the nucleus a uniform colour? What is the colour? Is it, we call the nucleus of a comet a dirty snowball. That's sort of the model, the idea of snow or ice mixed up with dust. Is it therefore a continuous surface, uniform colour? Does it have bright spots? Or not?
Okay, back to the studio.
Thanks, Peter. Well, you and Alan Gilmore down there in South Canterbury probably appreciate there are a lot of nodding heads amongst my astronomical friends here as Alan Gilmore went through some of the things that we hope to find out once the Giotto pictures start to come through in a quarter of an hour or so. Before we look into the future, as it were, there, let's just look back for 76 years. Charles Michie, whom I introduced earlier on, joins us, who saw Halley last time around. You were saying, Charles, that it was much closer to the Earth on that, what's the word, apparition. And I understand that at that time it was so close as to cause a good deal of fear amongst people.
That was due to a French mathematician, and he predicted that there was a great danger of a collision between the comet and Earth.
And what, I mean, people did believe that? What did they do about it?
Oh, well, it was reported that it caused panic in Europe.
But what about here?
Not that I know of.
The solid Kiwis of the day had no fear that Halley was going to come in. No. But you raise an interesting point there, Charles, when you talk about it was reported then. How was it reported? Because you have no radio.
In the ordinary press.
Which was what, the daily paper?
In our case, it was the Auckland Weekly News.
So I must just get a picture of this 20-year-old Charles Michie standing there watching Halley, and the only contact you had, am I right, with the rest of the world was the weekly newspaper that came.
That was so.
Amazing. Just think in 76 years that here you are sitting looking at instant pictures coming right down from Halley. We were commenting, weren't we, Frank, on how much change there has been, goodness knows, in our lifetime, but even more in Charles's. You were 13, I think, Charles, when the Wright brothers flew. Is that right? How old were you when the Wright brothers flew?
I can't remember. I think about 25, I think.
Well, can we just, I'd be interested, Frank, in your view. We look backwards to see how much we have moved scientifically since then. What do you reckon is going to be like in another 76 years? What are people going to be doing instead of sitting here watching pictures coming down the line?
Quite honestly, Ian, I think it's really impossible to say. We've heard speculations of a manned landing on Halley's Comet. That's if we find that there's a nucleus to land on. Yeah. Who knows? The moon will probably be colonised. Possibly some of the moons of, well, one of the moons of Mars may well have permanent stations on them.
This time they're sending Concorde flights to look at Halley's Comet. Next time they'll probably send a space shuttle to fly past it, and people can pay a couple of $1 million to get a close look at Halley's Comet.
That's cheap with inflation.
No, enough of that. You're going to be quoted another 76 years. Martina, what is, the reality of possibility of somebody actually landing on that dirty snowball?
Well, you could land on it, but the difficulty is that there is almost no gravitation, so it would be really difficult to walk. As we've seen from the moon landings, that the astronauts had to keep quite tight to the spacecraft and so on. It would be very difficult to move.
But
also,
as they say, Dave, I mean, we have the technology. Do we have the technology now to actually put someone on there? Do you?
Oh, not now, I wouldn't think, but certainly I think by the next time it comes around, we'll definitely have it. Who knows where we're going to be by then? As Frank said, we'll land it on Mars, we'll have colonised the moon, we'll be perhaps sending unmanned probes to the stars by then. Who knows? Yeah.
I have a suspicion that it'll be fairly routine technology to get around the solar system by that stage.
Yeah. Well, some of you out there may well be able to check whether the sorts of fantasies that they've been having here do in fact come to pass by the next time Halley's Comet comes around. Until now, of course, our observations of Halley's Comet have been almost entirely earthbound. And we've been looking at Halley's Comet from various parts of New Zealand over the past fortnight. There'll be better viewing opportunities for ordinary mortals like us all the way through until the end of April. But for the last month or so, people from all over the world have been gathering at the Halley Watch site in South Canterbury. Peter Llewellyn is with some of them now.
Well, it's been a very exciting time for O'Merriman, this small little town overcome by Halley mania. Rob Perriam, how's it affected the local community?
Well, Peter, we're involved in the mammoth fundraising exercise at the moment, where the local people are doing all the catering up on the site here. As you can see, we have a little shop selling all sorts of gifts for souvenirs from Halley's, and it's quite a mammoth task. It's going off very well. We have a lot of people involved, but it's a very unusual hours. 3 o'clock in the morning we start up here, and it goes on for a long time, so it's quite a mammoth task.
I understand there's some sort of community benefit from the whole thing as well.
Yes, the local school, they're just about doubling the size of the local swimming pool at the moment. We need a lot of funds for that. Right next door to the school, we're building a church. The local community were raising funds for the new church, and we hope to gain quite a bit of that from this exercise we're doing up here.
Right. Well, there's quite a few of the kids with us from the local school. Now, Sarah, over the back there, have you been excited by the Comet? Have you been up to see it and done all those things?
This is my first time up here, but I hope to come up another day.
Yeah, the weather's been so bad recently. It's been a bit tricky in the mornings, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, who else has actually been up to see the Comet so far? I saw a hand there. What's your name?
Paul.
Paul, what did you think of the Comet?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it? Why? The weather was so bad? Oh, well, that's a shame. Well, Rob, the swimming pool and the church are all going up. What about all the influx of tourists you've had? How's that affected things?
Well, it's certainly putting O'Merriman on the map. It's always been a pretty popular stopover place, but there's an incredible amount of people around at the moment. A lot of American people, particularly.
Indeed. OK, right, we're back to the studio now. Back to Avalon. Ian.
Peter Llewellyn, with a lot of the people in a place that might well be renamed Halley or something. Anyway, they're very excited, almost as excited, I guess, as we are here, as we await the word from Darmstadt, the European Space Agency Mission Control, that the Giotto pictures are on their way down. That shouldn't be too long, but right now, a break.
It's back by popular demand. Follow Halley's Comet with this Caltex Planisphere and Halley's Comet wall chart. Available right now at a Caltex Star Shop near you.
Pain. When it seems locked in for the day, you need a painkiller that gives relief, even in severe headaches. Nurofen contains only ibuprofen, a safer, more effective alternative to aspirin and paracetamol. A breakthrough in pain relief because it's now available without prescription. Ask your pharmacist for Nurofen. It's easy to swallow and fast-acting. Nurofen, for the gentle relief of locked-in pain.
Welcome back to Halley Live. Well, just 5 or 10 minutes ago, Charles Michie was telling us that the last time Halley was around, there was considerable fear in the northern hemisphere anyway, that there might be a collision, and that certainly there was some danger from the streams of dust that followed the comet colliding with the Earth and doing some damage. Frank, Martina, how realistic a possibility is that? I mean, what happens to the particles of dust that I gather stream out behind Halley's Comet's tail?
Well, if you, for instance, take this example with last time the Earth passing through Halley's Comet tail, and I think the fear was that the cyanide being detected in the tail would poison the people and kill them. But still, even if we see the tail, it is still of very low density, and that means that those cyanide particles almost don't do anything at all, because they don't come down enough on the planet to do anything. So
generally, I mean, what are they anyway? I mean, what are they made of? Or is that something you're going to find out?
These dust particles,
yeah.
Yes. Well, they seem to be made of such things as carbon, iron. Then we have various molecules and small icy particles. It's a little difficult to say precisely what they're made of. But that's what we're here to find out today, if we're lucky.
Just let me ask you about that, David, because wouldn't it have been better if Giotto could have come back to Earth and brought us some particles?
Well, yes, it would have been much better, but unfortunately a combination of, firstly, lack of funds for a project that complex, and also the fact that they only could use the technology they had available at the time meant that they couldn't do that. However, the Europeans are already planning another mission called Caesar, which proposes to do that very same thing with a couple of other comets. This would be later in the decade, in the early 1990s, perhaps.
But we will hear those dust particles as they actually hit Giotto.
Well, apparently there is microphones mounted on the dust shields, and my information is that the sounds of these dust particles hitting the shields will be broadcast.
Thank you, David. We're going to find out all about that quite soon, because we're ready now to join the International Satellite Link-Up. And so we go to Patrick Moore of the BBC at the European Space Agency's Mission Control in Darmstadt in West Germany.
We can now get close range views.